Welcome to Storytales. Please like this video and subscribe to Storytales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Rowan Granger stood by the stone fireplace, sipping scotch that burned less than the scene unfolding before him. Through the large windows of their Ash Creek home, Oregon's November gloom pressed against the glass like an unwelcome guest. Inside, warmth and tension mingled in equal measure. Everyone gathered around. Maureen Whitlock's voice cut through the din of the Thanksgiving gathering. His mother-in-law stood in the center of the living room, her silver hair swept into an immaculate updo that matched her rigid posture. She wore wealth like armor cashmere sweater, pearls, and that smile that never quite reached her eyes that Rowan's gaze drifted to his daughter. 12-year-old Lila hovered at the edge of the room, her dark hair falling over one eye in that way that drove Lenora crazy, but Rowan found endearing. She wore the forest green dress they'd compromised on, more formal than Lila wanted, less fancy than his wife had insisted upon. "I have special gifts for all my grandchildren this year," Maureen announced, gesturing to the velvet pouches arranged on the coffee table. "Something to remind each of you of your place in this family." Rowan watched the cousins scramble forward, Lenora's nieces and nephews, all perfectly groomed like show ponies. Their excitement seemed to push Lila further into her corner, but Rowan saw the hope flickering in her eyes. "Madison, this bracelet has the Whitlock family crest," Maureen said, fastening a silver chain around her granddaughter's wrist. "Tyler, your grandfather's cufflinks for when you're old enough to wear them properly." One by one, Maureen distributed heirlooms and treasures, each with a story, each with meaning. Lila took a hesitant step forward when the last child had been called, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Rowan felt his jaw tighten. He looked to his wife of 2 years, Lenora, who stood beside her mother with that practice smile, the one she used at parent-teacher conferences and neighborhood potlucks. The counselor smile, the one that said, "I'm listening, I care," when she was already formulating judgments. "Is there something for me, Grandma Maureen?" Lila's voice was small but clear. The room fell silent. Maureen's smile thinned to a line as she looked at Lila with cool assessment. "Oh dear, these are family heirlooms," she said, each word precise and cutting. "She's not really family." Tom seemed to stop. Rowan's grip tightened around his glass as he watched his daughter's expression crumble, tried to make sense of the words hanging in the air. He looked to Lenora, waiting for her to step in, to say something, anything to defend his daughter. Their daughter, as she'd promised to be when they married. Instead, Lenora shifted uncomfortably, smoothing her dress before offering a weak smile. "Mom's just being honest, Lila. These are Whitlock family treasures. You understand." Rowan saw the exact moment Lila's heart broke. It was in the slight quiver of her lower lip before she pressed them firmly together, in a way her shoulders squared, as if bracing against a physical blow. She gave a quick nod before retreating to the far side of the room. Conversations resumed around them, but Rowan remained still, the scotch forgotten in his hand. Something had shattered in that moment, and no amount of small talk or pumpkin pie could piece it back together. 3 hours later, Rowan drove home in silence, the windshield wipers keeping time with his thoughts. In the rearview mirror, he could see Lila staring out the window, her reflection ghost-like against the darkness. Lenora sat beside him, checking emails on her phone as if nothing had happened. "That was uncalled for," he finally said, his voice low but firm. Lenora sighed without looking up. "Let's not make this bigger than it is. Mom is particular about family traditions. Your mother called my daughter not family, and you agreed with her." "I didn't agree, Rowan. I explained. Same thing." She put her phone down. "No, it's not. Look, I love Lila. You know I do, but..." "But what?" The steering wheel felt small beneath his grip. "But she's not a Whitlock. Those gifts were Whitlock family heirlooms passed down for generations. Mom wasn't trying to be cruel." Rowan glanced again at Lila in the mirror. Her headphones were on now, but he knew his daughter well enough to recognize when she was pretending not to listen. "We're here," he said, pulling into their driveway. Their home was modest compared to Maureen's estate, a 2-story craftsman with a wide porch that Rowan had restored himself. Before the accident, before everything changed. Once inside, Lila disappeared upstairs without a word. I'm going to check on her, Rowan said. Lenora caught his arm. Give her space. She'll be fine. She won't be fine. She was humiliated today. Lenora's expression hardened. My mother has been through enough, Rowan. Her health isn't good, and the last thing she needs is drama. Drama? Rowan pulled his arm free. Is that what you call standing up for our family? You're overreacting, and you're not reacting enough. As he climbed the stairs, memories of his life before Lenora surfaced like debris after a storm. 6 years ago, he'd been respected throughout Ash Creek. A contractor who built homes for people, who fixed what was broken. Then came the fall from a second-story framework, the shattered leg that never quite healed right, the pain medication that dulled more than just physical agony. When his business faltered, friends disappeared like morning mist, he'd opened the woodworking shop with the last of his savings. A place for damaged things, old furniture, forgotten craftsmanship. Himself, Rowan paused outside Lila's door, listening. No sound. He knocked gently. What? Her voice was muffled. Can I come in? A beat passed. I guess. Lila sat cross-legged on her bed, sketchbook open but untouched. Her room was a haven of organized chaos, books stacked by color rather than author, posters of bands Rowan pretended to know, and everywhere, traces of her artistic talent. Sketches, small clay sculptures, a half-finished painting of Mount Hood at sunset. You okay? He asked, sitting at the edge of her bed. Fine. She didn't look up. Lila, Dad, I get it. I'm not their blood. It's whatever. No, it's not whatever. What happened today wasn't right. Lila finally met his eyes. Then why didn't you say anything? Why didn't Lenora? The question hit him like a sucker punch. Why hadn't he spoken up immediately? The answer was complicated, wrapped in financial struggles, in his gratitude for Lenora's stability after years of uncertainty, in his desire to give Lila the security he thought she deserved. When he'd met Lenora 3 years ago, she'd seemed like an answer to unspoken prayers. A school counselor with a warm smile and steady income. She'd approached him at a parent-teacher conference for Lila's class. Her interest in his woodworking had seemed genuine. Her care for Lila, authentic. The courtship had been swift dinners, weekend trips, introductions to her family. Maureen had been cold from the start, but Lenora assured him it was just her way. She'll warm up once she gets to know you, she'd said. Once she sees how happy we are. Rowan had believed her, wanted to believe her. The wedding was small but elegant, paid for by Maureen. A gesture of goodwill, Lenora had claimed. Only later did Rowan realize it was the first move in a game he hadn't known they were playing. Dad, Lila's voice pulled him back. I'm sorry, kiddo. I should have said something. She shrugged, but he saw the hurt beneath the gesture. It doesn't matter. It does. And I promise you, it won't happen again. He pulled her into a hug, feeling her thin shoulders beneath his arms, smelling the strawberry shampoo she insisted on buying with her own allowance money. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's a new day. Downstairs, Lenora was on the phone, her voice hushed. Perfectly fine, Mom. No, he's not making a scene. Yes, I know. Of course I remember what we discussed. She glanced up, saw Rowan, and quickly ended the call. Mom was just checking we got home safe. Rowan said nothing. He'd learned to read Lenora's expressions, to decipher the code of her carefully chosen words. Tonight, she wasn't even trying to hide the lie. How's Lila? Lenora set her phone down, adopting the concerned tone she used with troubled students. Hurt, confused, wondering why the woman who promised to be her stepmother stood by while she was excluded and humiliated. That's not fair. Tell me what would be fair, Lenora. Because from where I stand, nothing about today was fair to my daughter. She sighed, rubbing her temples. Look, I know Mom can be difficult, but she's set in her ways. And those heirlooms, they really are meant for Whitlock descendants. It's tradition. Tradition. Rowan laughed without humor. Is it also tradition to tell a child she's not family? In front of everyone, you're twisting her words. I'm repeating them exactly. He turned away, unable to look at her without seeing Maureen's calculated coldness reflected back at him. I'm going to bed. Rowan, wait. But he was already climbing the stairs, the distance between them growing with each step. When Lenora came to bed an hour later, Rowan pretended to be asleep. The mattress dipped beneath her weight, but no part of her touched him as she settled under the covers. The 6 inches between them might as well have been miles that he listened to her breathing even out, waited until he was certain she was asleep, then slipped out of bed. The house creaked around him as he made his way to his office, once a small bedroom, now filled with bookshelves, drafting paper, and a desktop computer where he managed his business accounts. Rowan closed the door quietly behind him and sat at his desk. The lamp cast a warm circle of light as he opened his laptop. His fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment before he began typing, pulling up files he'd started collecting months ago. Little things at first, discrepancies in what Lenora told him versus what actually happened. Strange comment from Maureen, overheard phone conversations that he'd told himself he was being paranoid. That the accident and its aftermath had made him suspicious, had taught him to look for cracks in foundations. But today had confirmed what he'd feared. The cracks in his marriage weren't just in the foundation, they ran through the entire structure. Rowan opened a document labeled Custody Agreement and hit print. As the pages emerged, he read through the legal language once more. When Lenora had suggested updating Lila's custody arrangements, just in case something happens to you, he'd thought it was practical. Loving even. Now he saw it for what it was, the first step in a plan he was only beginning to understand. He placed the documents in a manila folder, then unlocked the bottom drawer of his desk, the one with the key he kept on his personal keyring, separate from the household keys. Inside were copies of their prenuptial agreement, financial records, and notes from conversations that had seemed odd at the time, ominous in retrospect. As he added the custody papers to the growing file, his gaze fell on the family photo on his desk. It had been taken last summer at the coast, Lila laughing as waves crashed behind her, Lenora with her arm around Rowan's waist, her smile perfect for the camera. A beautiful lie. Rowan closed the drawer and locked it, pocketing the key. There would be no confrontation tonight. No heated words, no accusations. That wasn't his way. Besides, he knew better than to show his hand too early. He moved to Lila's room, opening the door just enough to see her sleeping form. One arm flung over her head as always. Her face in sleep was peaceful, unguarded, a reminder of all he had to protect. Back in his bedroom, he slipped under the covers and stared at the ceiling, his mind clear for the first time in months. He'd forgiven much over the years: his own father's absence, his first wife's death that left him a grieving single parent, the accident that derailed his career. He'd forgiven Lenora's subtle criticisms, her mother's not-so-subtle disdain, the way they both sometimes looked at Lila, as if she were an inconvenient truth rather than a bright, creative child. No more forgiveness. Not this time. Outside, rain began to fall, steady and determined against the windows. Rowan closed his eyes, a plan already forming in his mind. The storm was coming, and this time, he would be the one controlling its direction. "You look like hell," Angela Wren said, sliding a cup of coffee across the table. "Not that I'm surprised, given what you just told me." The downtown cafe buzzed with morning activity, college students hunched over laptops, business people grabbing pastries on their way to work. Rowan had chosen it precisely because of its anonymity. No one from Ash Creek ventured this far into Portland's arts district. "I feel like hell," he admitted, wrapping his hands around the warm mug. "I should have seen this coming." Angela's eyes, so much like her sister's, Rowan's first wife, narrowed slightly. "Don't blame yourself for not recognizing a snake before it strikes." She pushed her dark hair behind her ears, the tattoos on her wrist catching the light. "I never trusted Lenora. Too perfect, too practiced. You were right. I usually am." A hint of a smile crossed her face before fading. "But I'm sorry about this. Especially for Lila. How's she holding up?" Rowan sighed, trying to pretend it doesn't bother her. "But I know better. She's tough, like her mom was." Angela's voice softened at the mention of her sister, gone 6 years now. Cancer had taken her quickly, leaving Rowan and 6-year-old Lila reeling in its wake. "I need a favor," Rowan said after a moment. "Lenora's been hinting that Lila should go to some sleepaway camp this summer. 3 months, very exclusive. I didn't think much of it, but now I'm wondering if it's the first step to something else." "Let me guess, Maureen suggested it." "How'd you know?" "Because that woman has been trying to control every aspect of your lives since day one." Angela took a sip of her own coffee. What's the favor? I need someone to watch Lila when I can't. Someone I trust completely. Done. No hesitation, no questions. I'd pay you. Don't insult me. She set her cup down with a decisive click. Lila is my niece. The only family I have left besides my disaster of a brother. Relief washed through him. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. What's your plan, Rowan? Because if this is as bad as I think it is, you can't just avoid conflict and hope it goes away. I'm working on it. He hesitated, then added, there's more. I overheard something last week. Lenora and Maureen talking when they thought I was in the workshop. What kind of something? Legal terms. Guardianship. Inheritance. They stopped when they realized I was coming, but he shook his head. They're planning something on, and it involves Lila. Angela's expression hardened. Has it occurred to you that Lenora only married you for some twisted status game? Her last fiancé left her at the altar, right? Very public, very humiliating. Especially for someone from a family that values appearances above all else. Rowan nodded slowly. He'd heard rumors about Lenora's broken engagement, but she rarely spoke of it. You think she saw me as what? A safe option? A reliable backup? I think, Angela said carefully, that Lenora does what her mother tells her to do. Always has, from what I've heard. And if Maureen decided you were an acceptable replacement, stable, hard-working, not likely to embarrass the family, then Lenora would fall in line. The thought hit Rowan with surprising force. He believed Lenora had seen something in him, had chosen him despite their differences. The alternative that he'd been selected for his utility, his malleability, made his stomach turn. Well, he said finally, she miscalculated. That's the spirit. Angela's smile was fierce now. So, when do I start babysitting my favorite niece? How about tomorrow? I need to meet someone. After finishing their coffee, they walked to the parking lot together. As Angela unlocked her car, she turned to Rowan with a serious expression. You know I've got your back, right? Whatever you need. I know. He hugged her briefly. Tell me something, did you ever like Lenora? Honestly? No. She reminded me of those girls in high school who'd smile to your face while deciding where to stick the knife. Angela slid into the driver's seat. But I kept quiet because you seemed happy. Were you? Ever? Rowan considered the question. I thought I was. For a while. And now I'm seeing clearly for the first time in years. Back at home, Rowan found Lenora in the kitchen. Phone pressed to her ear. She smiled when she saw him, but didn't reach her eyes. I'll call you back, Mom, she said, ending the call. Where have you been? I thought you'd be in your workshop. Had coffee with Angela. A flash of something annoyance? Concern? Crossed Lenora's face. Angela Wren? Your ex-sister-in-law? That's unexpected. Is it? Rowan kept his tone neutral. She's Lila's aunt. Of course. It's just been so long since you've mentioned her. We're reconnecting. Lenora moved to the refrigerator, her back to him. That's nice. Speaking of connections, Mom wants us to come for dinner next weekend. Just adults. And Lila, Mom thought it might be boring for her. All business talk, you know how it is. I'll ask Angela to watch her. Lenora turned, surprise evident. You've already arranged that? Just now, actually. Rowan kept his expression mild, giving nothing away. Problem? No problem. She smiled again, that counselor's smile. It's good she'll be with family. The emphasis was slight but unmistakable. Rowan let it pass, watching as Lenora returned to preparing dinner. Her movements were efficient, practiced just like everything else about her. Later, as they ate in near silence, Rowan caught snippets of Lenora's one-sided conversation with Lila. Questions about school, comments about her outfit choice, subtle criticisms disguised as helpful suggestions. Lila answered politely but briefly, her eyes darting occasionally to Rowan as if seeking rescue. After dinner, Lenora excused herself for a bath. The moment she was upstairs, Lila's shoulders relaxed visibly. Hey, Rowan said, gathering plates. You remember your Aunt Angela? Lila frowned. Mom's sister. No, your mom's sister. My first wife's sister. The distinction felt important suddenly. The one with the tattoos who sent you that art set last Christmas. Recognition dawned. Oh yeah, she's cool. She's going to watch you next weekend while I go to dinner with Lenora and Maureen. Lila's face fell. Why can't I come? Trust me, you don't want to. but I thought maybe afterward, you and I could do something. Just us. A small smile. Like what? Whatever you want. Can we go to Powell's? The big bookstore downtown. Absolutely. As he loaded the dishwasher, Rowan heard Lenora's phone buzz on the counter. He glanced at the screen without touching it. A text from Maureen. Call me when he's not around. We need to discuss the summer arrangements and the meeting with G. Gideon Mars, Rowan guessed. Maureen's lawyer. The pieces were falling into place, and Rowan didn't like the picture they were forming. You want the good news or the bad news? Gideon Mars asked, leaning back in his leather chair. His office overlooked the Willamette River, the afternoon sun glinting off the water. Rowan had known Gideon since high school, the smart-mouthed kid with a knack for debate, who'd gone on to become one of Portland's most sought-after family lawyers. They'd lost touch over the years, but reconnected after Rowan's accident, when Gideon had helped him navigate the insurance maze. Bad first. Gideon nodded, sliding a document across the polished desk. You signed this 2 months ago, according to the date. Rowan scanned the page, recognition dawning. This is the Guardian contingency form Lenora said was standard for blended families. There's nothing standard about it. Gideon pointed to a paragraph near the bottom. This clause gives Lenora partial custody of Lila if you become incapacitated, a term that's left deliberately vague. Could be physical injury, mental health issues, even substance abuse. Rowan's blood ran cold. I was on pain medication after the surgery on my leg. Prescribed, legal, which could be twisted into dependency with the right spin. Gideon's expression was grim. There's more. This rider, the one initialed here, allows for Lenora to petition for full custody if the partial arrangement proves untenable. She wouldn't. She might not. But Maureen would. Gideon leaned forward. Look, I don't want to overstep, but Maureen Whitlock has a reputation. Old money, old grudges, old ways of doing things. If she decides someone isn't worthy of her family name, she doesn't just cut ties, she destroys them. Rowan ran a hand over his face. What's the good news? The document isn't filed yet. It's prepared, signed, but not submitted to the court. Which means we have time. Time for what? To build your case. Gideon pulled out another folder. I've drawn up new documents, ones that protect Lila's interests and yours. We need to get these filed before they move on theirs. Rowan looked at his old friend with newfound appreciation. Why are you helping me like this? A shrug. Because I remember what you did for me junior year when those seniors were using me as a punching bag. Because your kid deserves better. Because I've seen what Maureen Whitlock does to people who cross her, and I don't want that happening to you. What does she do? Uses every connection, every favor owed, every skeleton in every closet until there's nothing left. Gideon's smile was humorless. But she's not infallible. No one is. Rowan signed the new documents, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is just the beginning. Gideon gathered the papers. And Rowan? Watch your back. If they're already preparing custody documents, they're serious. As Rowan drove home, pieces of the puzzle continued falling into place. Lenora's sudden interest in his medication after the surgery. Her suggestion that he see a therapist for anger issues he didn't have. The pamphlets for boarding schools that had appeared on her desk. They weren't just trying to separate him from Lila, they were building a case against him. That'd be why the time he reached home, anger had hardened into resolve. This wasn't just about his marriage anymore. This was about protecting his daughter from people who saw her as an obstacle rather than a child deserving of love and stability. Lenora was in the kitchen when he arrived, chopping vegetables with precise movements. How was your day? She asked without looking up. Productive. Yours. Fine. Mom called she wants to move the dinner to her house instead of the restaurant. More private. Fine by me. She glanced up, seemingly surprised by his easy agreement. Really? I thought you might object. Why would I? It's just dinner. A flicker of suspicion crossed her face before she masked it with a smile. Great. I'll let her know. Rowan dropped his keys on the counter, deliberately casual. By the way, I ran into Gideon Mars today. Remember him? From the insurance stuff after my accident. The knife paused mid-chop. Vaguely. He's doing well. Family law now. Very successful. Rowan watched her closely. It's good to have friends in useful places, isn't it? Lenora resumed chopping. her movements slightly less fluid. I suppose so. Where's Lila? Upstairs. Homework. The knife came down with more force than necessary. Rowan, is everything okay? You seem different lately. He smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. Everything's fine. Why wouldn't it be? As he climbed the stairs to check on Lila, Rowan knew the battle lines had been drawn. Lenora would be calling Maureen the moment he was out of earshot, reporting this conversation, analyzing his behavior. Let her. He'd stopped being predictable the moment he'd discovered their plans. Can I see that one? Lila pointed to a small wrapped box on the gift table. The birthday party for Tyler Lenora's sister's son was in full swing. The backyard of Maureen's estate transformed into a carnival complete with a small carousel and cotton candy machine. The hostess, Madeline Lenora's sister and Maureen's younger daughter, smiled with cold politeness. Oh, that's special for Tyler from Grandma. Family tradition, you know. The emphasis on family wasn't lost on Rowan, who stood nearby pretending to admire the elaborate cake. 3 weeks had passed since Thanksgiving, and the pattern had only become more obvious. Lila was being systematically excluded while maintaining the thinnest veneer of inclusion. She'd been invited to the party, but not included in the games. Given a seat at the table, but no party favor. Always on the outside, looking in. Lila's face fell for just a moment before she recovered. Cool. I'm going to get some cake. Rowan watched her walk away, shoulders squared against rejection. Pride and fury warred within him, pride at her resilience, fury at the necessity of it. She's handling it well, Lenora said, appearing at his side. Handling what well? You know. She gestured vaguely. The family dynamics. You mean being treated like an unwanted house guest by your family? Yeah, she's a trooper. Lenora sighed. Rowan, please. Not here. Where then? When? Because it's been weeks, Lenora, and nothing's changed. These things take time. Mom is set in her ways, and you're all too happy to let her be. Rowan stepped back, creating distance between them. I'm taking Lila home. The party's not over. It is for us. He found Lila sitting alone at an empty table, picking at a slice of cake. Hey, kiddo. Ready to go? She looked up, relief evident. Can we? Without being rude, we can. And honestly, I don't care about being rude right now. As they walked to the car, Lila was quiet, lost in thought. It wasn't until they were halfway home that she spoke. Dad, why do they hate me? The question hit him like a physical blow, harder because he'd been expecting it, dreading it. They don't hate you, Lila. Then why do they treat me like I'm nothing? He gripped the steering wheel tighter. Because they're broken people. And broken people sometimes try to break others to feel better about themselves. Am I broken? God, no. Rowan glanced at her, heart aching at the genuine uncertainty in her voice. You're perfect exactly as you are. Then why doesn't Lenora stick up for me? She promised she would when you guys got married. She said we'd be a real family. The betrayal in her voice cut deep. Rowan had asked himself the same question countless times over the past weeks. Sometimes people make promises they don't intend to keep. That's lying. Yes, it is. They drove in silence for several minutes before Lila spoke again. I heard you and Lenora fighting last night. About me. Rowan winced. He tried to keep their arguments private, but the walls in their home were thin. I'm sorry you heard that. Don't be. I'm glad you stood up for me. Her voice was small but certain. Nobody else does. When they arrived home, Rowan made a decision. Get changed into something comfortable. I want to show you something. 10 minutes later, they stood in his workshop behind the house. The converted garage smelled of sawdust and varnish, familiar, comforting scents that had defined much of Rowan's life. What do you think? He gestured to a half-finished piece of furniture in the corner, the beginnings of a chest, the wood of warm cedar that glowed in the afternoon light. Lila ran her hand over the smooth surface. It's beautiful. What is it? It's going to be a hope chest. They used to be traditional gifts for daughters of place, to keep special things, memories, treasures. Rowan picked up a piece of sandpaper. I thought we could build it together. Something that's just ours. Really, for the first time in weeks, genuine excitement lit up her face. You let me help? I'm counting on it. Here. He handed her the sandpaper. Start with this piece. Nice and smooth, following the grain. As Lila carefully began sanding, her brow furrowed in concentration. Rowan felt a moment of perfect clarity. This connection, this shared creation was worth fighting for. Worth any battle that lay ahead. Dad, Lila looked up, dust on her cheek. Can I put a secret compartment in it? For special stuff? He smiled. Absolutely. It's your chest. We'll make it exactly how you want it. Hours passed as they worked side by side, the tension of the day dissolving in the rhythm of their shared task. When Lenora's car pulled into the driveway, Rowan checked his watch, surprised by how late it had gotten. We should clean up, he said. Dinner time. Lila brushed sawdust from her clothes. Can we work on it again tomorrow? Every day until it's finished. As they walked back to the house, Lila slipped her hand into his something she hadn't done in months, claiming she was too old for that kid stuff. The simple gesture nearly undid him. Lenora was in the kitchen, her expression tight. You left without saying goodbye. We said goodbye to the birthday boy, Rowan replied evenly. That seemed sufficient. Mom was upset. Maureen is often upset. It's her natural state. Lila slipped away to wash up, leaving them alone in the kitchen. What were you doing in the workshop? Lenora asked, her tone carefully modulated. Working on a project with Lila. What kind of project? The question seemed innocent, but Rowan caught the calculation behind it. A cedar chest. For her. Like a hope chest. Lenora's laugh was forced. How old-fashioned. Some traditions are worth keeping. He moved past her to wash his hands at the sink. Unlike treating a child like an outsider in her own family. We're back to that. We never left it. Rowan dried his hands, turning to face her fully. Your family has made it clear where Lila stands. And you've made it clear where you stand. With them. That's not fair. Stop saying that. Stop hiding behind what's fair and face what's true. His voice remained low, controlled. You promised to be a mother to her. Instead, you've been an accomplice to her exclusion. Lenora's mask slipped, just for a moment. You don't understand the pressure. For Maureen? I understand it perfectly. What I don't understand is why you let her dictate how you treat a child. It's complicated. It's actually very simple. Rowan stepped closer. Either Lila is family all the way, no exceptions, or she isn't. And if she isn't, then neither am I. Fear flashed in Lenora's eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying choices have consequences. You and Maureen have been making choices for months now. Did you really think there wouldn't be a reckoning? Before she could respond, Lila returned, her hair damp from washing up. The conversation halted abruptly, but the atmosphere remained charged, like the air before a lightning strike. That night, long after Lila and Lenora had gone to bed, Rowan sat in his workshop, hands moving automatically over the cedar chest. Each stroke of sandpaper, each careful measurement, was an act of defiance against those who would separate him from his daughter, that a plan was taking shape, not just defensive measures, but a counteroffensive. If Maureen and Lenora were building a case against him, he would build one of his own. One based on truth rather than manipulation, that he needed evidence. And he knew exactly where to start. You always were a Boy Scout, Curtis Finn said, leaning back in his chair. They sat in a corner booth of a hole-in-the-wall diner 20 miles outside Ash Creek, far from prying eyes. Always prepared. Rowan smiled thinly. Not prepared enough, apparently. Curtis still built like the linebacker he'd been in their Army days, despite the gray at his temples, shook his head. Don't beat yourself up. People like Maureen Whitlock make careers out of manipulating others. She's had a lifetime of practice, and her daughter learned well. Rowan pushed a thumb drive across the table. Everything's here: photos, emails, voice recordings, plus documents showing the custody maneuvers they've been planning. Curtis pocketed the drive. And the tax stuff? You're sure about that? Positive. Maureen's been using shell companies to hide income for years. The really interesting part is that she's put Lenora's name on several of the forms, making her daughter complicit, possibly without Lenora even realizing the full implications. Smart. Insurance to keep Lenora in line. Curtis whistled low. Nasty piece of work, your mother-in-law. Ex-mother-in-law, if I have anything to say about it. You sure about this, Rowan? Once I start making calls, there's no going back. These people have resources, connections. Rowan didn't hesitate. I'm sure. They're trying to take my daughter. I'm not giving them a chance. Curtis studied him for a long moment. Okay, I'll make the calls. My contact at the Tribune owes me a favor, and I know people at the state tax office will be very interested in these documents. No moves yet, just prep work. I'll give the signal when it's time. Your call. Curtis signaled for the check. How's Lila handling all this? Better than she should have to. She's strong, like her old man. Curtis clapped him on the shoulder as they stood to leave. When's the Christmas party at Whitlock Manor? That's when you're planning the grand finale, right? Next Saturday. Everyone will be there, family, friends, business associates. The perfect audience. Outside, snow had begun to fall, dusting the parking lot with white. Curtis paused by his truck. You know, most men will have walked away by now. Divorced quietly, shared custody moved on. Most men aren't watching their child be systematically rejected by people who promised to love her. Rowan's breath clouded in the cold air. Besides, a quiet divorce is exactly what they want. It would solve their Lila problem halfway. I'd have her part-time. They'd have a Lenora free of complications. And you're not giving them what they want. Not this time. Rowan extended his hand. Thank you for this, Curtis. Don't thank me yet. Save that for when we're drinking to your victory. Curtis gripped his hand firmly. Just be careful. People get desperate when cornered. On the drive home, Rowan's mind raced through scenarios, contingencies, potential reactions. The plan wasn't just about revenge, though that was certainly part of it. It was about protection, about making sure Maureen and Lenora could never again threaten his daughter's security or happiness. His phone buzzed with a text from Angela. Lila and I are making cookies. She says you better hurry or we'll eat them all. A smile tugged at his lips. Angela had become a constant presence in their lives over the past weeks, stepping in whenever Rowan needed support. Lila had blossomed under her attention, revealing parts of herself that had been hidden during the years with Lenora, her quick wit, her artistic talent, her newfound interest in her mother's family history. The contrast between Angela's genuine care and Lenora's performative affection had become impossible to ignore. Even Lila had begun to see it, asking questions about her real mom that she'd avoided for years. When Rowan arrived home, the house smelled of vanilla and cinnamon. Laughter echoed from the kitchen, a sound that had become rare in recent months. There he is, Angela called as he entered. Just in time for the first batch. Lila turned from the counter, face spotted with flour. Dad, Aunt Angie's teaching me Grandma Wren's secret recipe. Is she now? Rowan hung his coat, warmth spreading through him at the domestic scene. And are you going to share these secret cookies with your old man? Maybe, if you help with the dishes after. Deal. Lenora appeared in the doorway, her expression unreadable as she took in the scene. I didn't realize we were having company for dinner. Angela's not staying, Rowan said smoothly. Just helping with cookies. I can see that. Lenora's smile was tight. How domestic. Angela wiped her hands on a towel, her own smile deliberately bright. Lenora, good to see you. Lila's a natural baker, must get it from her mother's side. The reference to Rowan's first wife was deliberate, and Lenora's slight flinch confirmed she'd caught it. I'll let you all continue, Lenora said stiffly. I have calls to make. After she left, Angela rolled her eyes. Subtle as a brick, that one. Aunt Angie, Lila whispered. You don't have to whisper. Lenora always puts on noise-canceling headphones when she makes her important calls. Rowan and Angela exchanged glances over Lila's head. Good to know, kiddo, Angela said. Now, let's get these cookies in the oven. Later, after Angela had left and Lila was upstairs working on homework, Rowan found Lenora in her study, laptop open before her. Angela seems to be around a lot lately, she said without looking up. She's good with Lila. Rowan leaned against the doorframe. And Lila needs that right now. What's that supposed to mean? It means she needs people who make her feel valued. Included. Love. Lenora closed her laptop with deliberate calm. And I don't do that, do you? Rowan pushed away from the door. Because from where I stand, you've been complicit in every slight, every exclusion, every moment that's made her feel less than. That's not true. It is true. And the worst part, you know it. He turned to leave, then paused. The Christmas party at your mother's, I've decided we're bringing Angela. What? Mom would never. I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you what's going to happen. As he walked away, Rowan heard what he'd been waiting for. The sound of Lenora picking up her phone, dialing her mother. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The chessboard was set. The pieces were in motion. And in less than a week, he would deliver a checkmate neither Lenora nor Maureen would see coming. Snow fell in thick, lazy flakes as Rowan pulled up to Maureen's estate. The grand Victorian mansion was ablaze with lights, wreaths adorning every window, a 20-foot spruce glittering in the front yard. Picture perfect, like everything associated with Maureen Whitlock. Wow, Angela whistled from the passenger seat. Subtle. Lila peered through the window from the back seat. Grandma Maureen has the biggest Christmas tree in Ash Creek. She wins the contest every year. Of course she does, Angela muttered. Rowan checked his watch. 6 o'clock exactly, neither early enough to seem eager nor late enough to cause offense. Timing was everything tonight. Everyone ready? He asked, meeting Lila's eyes in the rearview mirror. She nodded, a mix of excitement and apprehension on her face. They discussed what might happen tonight, prepared her as much as possible without revealing the full scope of his plan. Remember, he said gently, no matter what happens in there, we're leaving together. You and me. Always. And me, Angela added with a wink. The awesome Ant package deal. Lila's smile strengthened. Let's do this. Inside, the party was in full swing. The foyer opened into a grand living room where at least 50 guests mingled, champagne flutes in hand. A string quartet played in one corner, nearly drowned out by conversation and laughter. Rowan. Lenora appeared at his side, her smile fixed, her green dress matching the decor perfectly. You're on time. And you brought Angela. As discussed. As promised. He corrected mildly. Angela gave a cheerful wave. Love what you've done with the place, Lenora. Very. Pottery Barn catalog. Lenora's smile tightened. Mother is by the fireplace. She's expecting us. I bet she is. Rowan placed a protective hand on Lila's shoulder. Lead the way. They wove through the crowd, Rowan nodding to familiar faces, neighbors, Lenora's colleagues, Maureen's business associates. He spotted Gideon Mars near the bar, who raised his glass slightly in acknowledgement. Everything was in place. Maureen Whitlock held court near the massive stone fireplace, resplendent in red velvet that emphasized her still striking figure. At 70, she remained formidable, silver hair expertly coiffed, posture regal, her smile calculating as she surveyed her domain. That smile faltered when she spotted Angela. Lenora, darling, Maureen said, kissing her daughter's cheek while her eyes remained fixed on the newcomers. Rowan. And Lila, of course. How festive you look. Lila wore a dress she and Angela had chosen together, deep blue with silver stars, complemented by the silver pendant that had belonged to her mother. She stood straighter under Maureen's critical gaze. Thank you, Mrs. Whitlock, she said politely. Merry Christmas. And this must be a friend? Maureen's gaze swept over Angela, taking in her tattoos and the deliberately casual black jumpsuit that stood out among the cocktail dresses. Angela Wren, Rowan supplied. Lila's aunt. My first wife's sister. How unexpected. Maureen's mouth pursed as if she'd tasted something sour. Well, there's food in the dining room, drinks at the bar. Make yourselves at home. The dismissal was clear. As Maureen turned away to greet other guests, Lenora shot Rowan a nervous glance before following her mother. Charming, Angela said under her breath. Real Christmas spirit there. Come on, Rowan said to Lila. Let's find those famous cookies your classmate Tyler was talking about. They spent the next hour navigating the party, accepting compliments on Lila's dress, making small talk with neighbors, carefully avoiding direct confrontation with Maureen or Lenora. Rowan noted with satisfaction that Curtis had arrived and was deep in conversation with a woman he recognized as a reporter from the Portland Tribune. A tea at o'clock. Maureen tapped a spoon against her champagne glass, drawing the room's attention. Friends, family, honored guests, she began, her voice carrying effortlessly. Thank you for joining our annual Christmas celebration. As is tradition, we have special gifts for the family to open before the main exchange. Servants appeared with elegantly wrapped packages, distributing them to Maureen's children, grandchildren, and extended family members. Once again, Lila stood empty-handed, though this time she showed no surprise or disappointment, only resignation. Angela squeezed her shoulder. "They're lost, kiddo." Rowan checked his watch again. It was time. "Mrs. Whitlock," he said, his voice carrying across the sudden lull in conversation. "I believe I have something for you as well." All eyes turned to him as he moved forward, reaching into his jacket to withdraw a small, perfectly wrapped box. Red paper, gold ribbon matching the party's theme exactly. Surprise flickered across Maureen's face, quickly replaced by suspicion. "How thoughtful." "It's the least I could do," Rowan replied, his tone pleasant. "After all, family is about sharing, isn't it?" Maureen accepted the package with reluctant hands. "Indeed. Please," Rowan gestured. "Open it now. I insist." A murmur ran through the crowd. This wasn't part of the scripted celebration Maureen orchestrated each year. With precise movements, she untied the ribbon and removed the paper, revealing a slim black binder. Her brow furrowed in confusion as she opened it. Rowan watched her expression change as she registered what she was seeing, color draining from her face, eyes widening in shock, then narrowing in fury. "What is this?" she hissed, soft enough that only those closest could hear. "This," Rowan said clearly, "is a collection I've been working on. Photos, signatures, financial documents. Quite an interesting read." Maureen snapped the binder shut. "This is hardly the time or place." "I disagree." Rowan turned to address the room at large. "In fact, I think everyone here might be interested to know that the Whitlock Charitable Foundation is currently under investigation by the IRS. Tax evasion, primarily. Shell companies. Fraudulent deductions. Very thorough work, actually." A shocked silence fell over the room. Lenora pushed forward, face pale. "Rowan, stop this. Right now." "What?" He met her gaze steadily. "Isn't honesty important? Isn't that what your mother always says?" "She's just being honest, right?" Maureen's voice was ice. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Actually, I do. That's the beauty of documentation." Rowan gestured to the binder. "Every form, every transaction, every shell company from the past 7 years, including those with Lenora's signature on them." Lenora gasped. "What? I never signed." "Oh, but you did." Rowan's smile was without warmth. "Your mother made sure of it. Insurance, I suppose. If she goes down, so do you." Maureen's composure cracked. "How dare you come into my home and make these accusations?" "They're not accusations if they're true." Curtis stepped forward, the reporter beside him. "And copies of those documents are already with the State Tax Office and the Tribune. Ms. Rivera here has been working on quite the expose, haven't you?" The reporter nodded, her expression professionally neutral. "We're publishing tomorrow." "No comment at this time, Mrs. Whitlock." Chaos erupted. Guests began whispering, some edging toward the door. Lenora grabbed Rowan's arm, nails digging through his suit jacket. "What have you done?" she demanded, voice breaking. "Do you have any idea?" "I know exactly what I've done." Rowan removed her hand. "I've protected my daughter from people who see her as a problem to be solved rather than a child to be loved. This isn't about Lila. It's always been about Lila." Rowan stepped back. "From a moment your mother decided she wasn't really family, this became inevitable." Angela appeared at his side, Lila close behind her. "I think it's time we left. This party's about to get really uncomfortable." Maureen's voice cut through the growing tumult. "This isn't over, Rowan." "You're right." He looked at her directly, without fear. "It's just beginning." As they moved toward the door, Lenora followed, her composure shattered. "Rowan, please. We can talk about this. Work something out." He paused, turning to face her one last time. "There's nothing to work out. You made your choice, Lenora. You chose your mother over your family, over Lila, and now you'll both face the consequences. You can't do this to us. I didn't do this to you. You did it to yourselves." He placed his arm protectively around Lila's shoulders. "Goodbye, Lenora." As they stepped out into the snowy night, Lila looked up at him with wide eyes. "Dad, is it really over?" "Not quite," he said softly, "but we're getting there." The drive home was silent, each person lost in their own thoughts. Snow continued to fall, transforming the world into something clean and new, a fitting metaphor Rowan thought for what tonight had set in motion. "You okay, kiddo?" Angela asked Lila, who sat huddled in the back seat. "I think so." She frowned slightly. "I didn't know Lenora signed bad papers." "Neither did she, probably," Rowan said. "Maureen has ways of hiding things in plain sight. Like she hid how she felt about me." The question hung in the air, simple but devastating in its clarity. "Yeah," Rowan answered finally. "Exactly like that." At home, Rowan sent Lila up to change while he and Angela sat at the kitchen table, the events of the evening settling around them like dust after an explosion. That, Angela said, pouring them each a whiskey, was something else. "It's not over yet. What else could possibly?" She was interrupted by the sound of tires on the driveway. Well, that didn't take long. Rowan moved to the window. "It's Lenora. Alone. Want me to stay?" "No. Take Lila upstairs. Use the back stairs. I don't want her to see this." Angela nodded, understanding. "Be careful." The moment she disappeared, the front door burst open. Lenora stood in the entryway, snow melting in her hair, makeup smeared from what appeared to be tears. "How could you?" she demanded, voice ragged. "In front of everyone. Our friends, my family." "Our friends," Rowan repeated calmly. "Your family?" Interesting choice of words. "This will destroy us. Do you understand that? Mom's foundation, her reputation. I don't care about Maureen's reputation. I care about my daughter. This isn't about Lila." "Say that again." Rowan's voice hardened. "Say it one more time, that this isn't about Lila, and I'll play you the recordings right now." Lenora froze. "What recordings?" "The ones where you and your mother discuss sending Lila to boarding school in Switzerland. The ones where Maureen suggests that my accident-prone history might warrant a custody review. The ones where you agree that Lila is a complication that needs to be managed." All color drained from Lenora's face. "You've been spying on us?" "I've been protecting my daughter." Rowan leaned against the counter, deceptively casual. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice? The whispered conversations, the legal documents, the way you both look at her like she's an inconvenience. That's not." "Stop lying." His voice remained level, controlled. "It's over, Lenora. The pretending, the manipulation, all of it." Her expression shifted from shock to calculation. "You can't prove any of this. It's your word against ours. Mom has connections, lawyers." Actually, a new voice said he can prove quite a bit. They both turned to see Angela at the foot of the stairs, phone in hand. "I've got the recording right here. The one from Thanksgiving night, when you and Mommy Dearest were in the study discussing how convenient it would be if Lila were somewhere more appropriate for her development." Lenora paled further. "You had no right." "I had every right," Angela countered. "She's my niece, my blood, and unlike some people, I take that seriously." Rowan nodded to Angela, who pressed play on her phone. Maureen's voice filled the room. "Once the custody arrangement is finalized, we can revisit the boarding school option. Lou Rosie has an excellent program far from here, very exclusive." Lenora's recorded voice responded. "But what about Rowan? He'd never agree. That's why we need the medical evaluation first, dear. His accident, the pain medication, the mood swings you've documented, it all builds a compelling case for limited visitation at most. And Lila would adjust eventually. Children are resilient. She'll thank you later, when she has the Whitlock name and connections without all this complication." Angela stopped the recording. "There's more. A lot more. Curtis has copies. So does his reporter friend." Lenora seemed to crumple, sinking onto a kitchen chair. "You don't understand. Mom, as always, she doesn't accept failure. After Jason left me at the altar, she was so angry, so disappointed. When I met Rowan, she saw a way to rehabilitate me. A respectable man, a stable influence. But Lila was always the sticking point. Mom doesn't like complications." "And you?" Rowan asked quietly. "What's your excuse?" She looked up, tears tracking through her makeup. "I just wanted to make it work. To keep everyone happy. Everyone except Lila. I did try in the beginning. I really did. But Mom, you don't know what she's like when she decides something. I know exactly what she's like. And now, so will everyone else." Rowan crossed his arms. "The Tribune is running the story tomorrow: financial fraud, child neglect, the works. Curtis made sure of it." Lenora's head snapped up. Curtis Finn? Your army buddy? The same. He's a community organizer now. Very connected in local media. This will ruin us. That, Rowan said simply, was the point. She stared at him, realization dawning. You planned all of this. From the beginning. Not from the beginning, but from the moment I realized what you and your mother were doing? Yes. Every step. I want to talk to Lila. No. Rowan, please. I need to explain. There's nothing to explain. Not to her, not tonight. He moved to the door, opening it pointedly. You should leave. We both know you won't be coming back. Lenora stood slowly, dignity reassembling itself in fragments. This isn't the end. It is for us. Rowan's voice was final. Divorce papers will be delivered in the morning. The prenup you insisted on is very clear about infidelity and criminal activity. You walk away with what you brought in. Nothing more. You can't prove infidelity. Angela laughed, sharp and short. Want to bet? Those business trips with Jason, your ex-fiancé? Not as discreet as you thought. Shock registered on Lenora's face. How did you? Small town. People talk. Especially hotel staff. Angela crossed her arms, mirroring Rowan's stance. Like I said, copies. Evidence. Lots of it. Defeated, Lenora moved to the door. She paused on the threshold, looking back at the home she would never enter again. I did care for her, you know. In my way. Your way wasn't enough, Rowan said. It never would have been. After she left, Angela let out a long breath. Well, that was intense. Thanks for the backup. Always. She glanced toward the stairs. Think Lila heard any of that? Probably. Rowan ran a hand through his hair. I'll talk to her in the morning. Explain what I can. For what it's worth, Angela said, I think you did the right thing. The only thing, given the circumstances. I know. Rowan moved to the window, watching Lenora's car disappear down the street. I just wish it hadn't come to this. 3 months passed. Winter gave way to spring, bringing new growth to replace what had been lost. The divorce was finalized with surprising speed. Gideon's efficiency, combined with the overwhelming evidence Rowan had compiled, left little room for negotiation. The prenuptial agreement Lenora had insisted upon, designed to protect her assets if she married down, had become the instrument of her financial undoing. Maureen's empire crumbled more slowly, but no less completely. The tax fraud investigation had expanded to include banking irregularities, misappropriation of charitable funds, and evidence of bribery. Her estate was frozen, then seized to cover legal fees and mounting penalties. Rowan watched it all from a distance, taking no pleasure in their downfall beyond the security it provided for Lila. The battle had never been about revenge, only protection, and on a bright April afternoon, Rowan stood in his workshop, applying a final coat of varnish to the completed cedar chest. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching in the rich grain of the wood, highlighting the intricate carvings Lila had designed herself: stars and moons, forests and mountains, symbols of strength and growth. It's beautiful, Angela said from the doorway. You two did an amazing job. Mostly Lila. Rowan stepped back to admire their work. She has an eye for detail I never had. Wonder where she gets that from. Angela's smile was knowing. Is she ready for the big reveal? Almost. She's picking which memories to include. They'd worked on the chest throughout the divorce proceedings, through the media storm that followed the Tribune's expose, through the quiet afternoons when Lila would ask difficult questions about family and belonging. Each session in the workshop had been a form of therapy, a rebuilding of trust and security, as tangible as the chest taking shape beneath their hands. She's different, Angela observed. Stronger, more sure of herself. She is. Pride colored Rowan's voice. She always had it in her. She just needed space to grow, and a father who would move heaven and earth for her. Rowan shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. Any parent would do the same. We both know that's not true. Angela checked her watch. I should get going. Dinner shift starts in an hour. Thanks for stopping by. And for everything else. That's what family does. She gave him a quick hug before heading out. Call me tomorrow. Let me know how she likes it. After Angela left, Rowan put the finishing touches on the chest, checking each joint and seam one last time. Perfect. Or as close to perfect as human hands could make it. Dad, Lila's voice called from the house. "Can I come out yet?" "5 more minutes," he called back. Final preparations. He placed the chest in the center of the workshop, angling it to catch the afternoon light, then hung the brass key on a blue ribbon, Lila's favorite color. "Okay," he said, opening the door. "It's ready." Lila entered, carrying a cardboard box filled with objects he couldn't quite see. She stopped short when she saw the finished chest. "Wow," she breathed. "It's even better than I imagined." The chest stood about 2 feet high and 3 feet long, its cedar surface polished to a warm glow. The lid featured the constellations Lila had designed, inlaid with lighter wood, while the sides displayed mountain scenes. The secret compartment they'd built together was invisible unless you knew where to press a small knot in the wood that, when touched in just the right way, released a hidden drawer. "Want to do the honors?" Rowan handed her the key. With careful movements, Lila unlocked the chest and lifted the lid. The scent of cedar filled the air, fresh, clean, promising. "Now for the important part," she said, kneeling beside the box she'd brought. "The memories." One by one, she removed items and placed them in the chest, explaining each one. A sketch of her mother, Rowan's first wife, done from an old photograph, that a small piece of wood from the first project they'd ever built together, that a seashell from their last trip to the coast before the accident, a birthday card Angela had sent when Lila turned 10. Photos spanning years: Lila as a toddler, Lila with Rowan at various ages, Lila with her friends, with Angela, moments of joy preserved in time. When the chest was nearly full, she reached into the box one last time and withdrew a folded piece of paper. "What's that?" Rowan asked. "My list." She unfolded it carefully. "Of what real family means. I've been working on it." She handed it to him. In her neat handwriting, he read, "Real family stands up for you, even when it's hard. Real family sees you for who you are, not who they want you to be. Real family builds things together, not just chests, but trust. Real family stays when others leave. Real family forgives mistakes, but remembers promises. Real family isn't always blood, but it's always love." Rowan swallowed hard against the sudden tightness in his throat. "This is perfect, Lila." "Not quite." She took the paper back, placed it in the chest, then looked up at him. "One more thing." From her pocket, she withdrew a small wooden carving, a tree with spreading branches, roots extending deep. Rowan recognized it immediately. He'd carved it years ago, when Lila was just a baby, a symbol of the family they would build together. "I found it in your desk when I was looking for tape," she explained. "Is it okay if I put it in?" "It's more than okay." He knelt beside her. "It belongs there." She placed the carving in the center of the chest, arranging the other items around it. When she was satisfied, she closed the lid gently, the lock clicking with soft finality. "So," she said, leaning against his shoulder, "what happens now?" Rowan put his arm around her. This child who had endured so much yet emerged stronger. This girl becoming a young woman before his eyes. "Now," he said, "we keep building. One day at a time. Together, always together." He looked at the chest, at the memories safely stored inside, at the future stretching before them, uncertain but full of possibility. "This is what real family looks like, Lila. This right here." She smiled, the expression reaching her eyes in a way it hadn't for too long. "I know, Dad," she said simply. "I know." Outside, spring sunshine painted the world in colors of renewal and hope. Inside the workshop, father and daughter sat beside the chest they'd built together, not just of wood and nails, but of resilience and love, of hard-won wisdom and unbreakable bonds. The past was behind them. The future was theirs.